Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. The topic for today's community management talk is how to integrate events into your community strategy. My name is Allison Leahy, and I'm the community manager at Ning, a fully hosted self-service platform for creating and cultivating online communities. For the latest Ning news, swing by ning.com after this presentation. I'm joined today by Breda Doherty, co-founder and director of Hubbit, a global event community aiming to bring online the spirit of festivals, to connect event goers, provide them with information to make their attendance easier, and give them a place to review their experiences. The Hubbit community launched about a year ago, and you can check it out and sign up to share your experiences from your favorite music festivals at hubb.it. Breda got her start in community management at Learning Pool, an online learning community where events were a key part of the community's growth strategy. At Learning Pool, Breda saw firsthand how powerful events can be when growing an online community. She's taken those learnings to heart and will share some of those with you here today. And in addition to launching and managing Hubbit, Breda is a community consultant with Feverbee, and she helps to run the Feverbee Professional Community Management course, which you can check out at course.feverbee.com. And if you haven't spent much time at Feverbee, I definitely encourage you to check that out. There's lots of great resources there for community managers. So definitely check out feverbee.com and the community management course as well. How to integrate events into your community strategy is the 8th in a series of community management talks. Previous webinars with Feverbee's Richard Millington covered activity, managing growth, facilitating member engagement, and converting newcomers into active members. All of the recordings are available on cultivate.ning.com, and we will be uploading the recording for today's presentation as well. So if you miss part of it, or if you just want to revisit it at a later date, we've got you covered. As questions arise throughout this webinar, please submit them using the questions feature. Submit as many as you like, and we'll take some time at the end to respond to as many as we can. I also invite you all to contribute to the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag NingTalk. That's hashtag NingTalk. Thanks again, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. Breda has a great presentation lined up, so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Breda Doherty.
The social and economic impact of events is one of the most extensively researched topics in the fields of anthropology, sociology, and community development. We can apply the findings of these studies to how we integrate events into our community strategy. For the purpose of this lesson, we will be covering the impact of online and also offline events upon online communities. Throughout the course of the webinar, we will look at why events are important to communities' development, understand the essential characteristics of successful events. We'll look at the different types of events that you can hold for your online community, and we'll also look at how events overall fit into your community strategy. We'll also look at several best practice examples of thriving communities that do events really well. But first up, we're going to have a bit of a background on the subject of events and why events are important to successful community development. Most academics agree that events play a key role in the development of social groups. An online community is a form of social group where you're bringing individuals together around a shared common interest. The act of regularly participating in events alongside other members increases the emotional attachment members feel towards the community. If you feel more connected to the community, then you're more likely to visit more often and also participate more regularly. Alongside discussions and content, events are one of the 3 key ways you can increase participation in your community. And as Alison mentioned, my colleague Richard has done several other webinars and also some guest blogs for Ning. And you can check out his content webinar on the Cultivate site, which it makes a great webinar to watch alongside events. As you'll see, there's a lot of comparisons and a lot of things as well to be aware of. And events and content will discuss how you can connect the two and use them to drive each other. Some of the best academic research on the impact of events on communities include that of Chalip, who found that events support a community by fostering social value through their celebratory nature and bringing members together in a shared space. So that shared space might be online via something like a webinar, or it might be face-to-face through something like a casual meetup or a conference. Brown and Houston highlight that events increase contact between individuals. This increased contact strengthens the bond between members, leading to closer relationships. And as a community manager, you're constantly striving to build the relationships between your members, so events are a great way to achieve that. Young et al. Found that events celebrate the community identity. This results in a sense of pride and an increased sense of community. In case anyone's not familiar with the concept of sense of community refers to the level of belonging members feel. As a community manager, increasing the sense of community your members feel is always part of your strategy, and events are the main way that you can achieve this. Sense of community experts Macmillan and Chavis found a strong connection between a shared sense of history and community events. A shared history increases the emotional connection between members. And later in the lesson, we'll discuss ways to capture content that will reflect an event's history. When you think about a shared sense of history, I always think that it's useful to think of something that you do, an event that you may go to in your everyday life. So something like a sporting event, a concert, or even an historical event that you may have been part of. These type of events are great at not only finding a commonality with other people, but they straight away open up the door to further discussions with that person. Events also allow you to develop momentum, which can be used to achieve wider community goals. After the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, the partnership and sense of collaboration and togetherness citizens felt as a result of the Olympic Games was used to regenerate a vast area of the city. And here I also like to talk briefly about Woodstock, as I think it's an absolutely brilliant example of an event that was so monumental, and it's often cited as one of the major events that changed the whole history of rock and roll. And it's also a cultural touchstone of 1960s America. And indeed, it identified a whole generation of people as the Woodstock generation. And it just shows how powerful it can be to bring together people when they are so passionate about a specific topic or interest, whether it's music, peace, or something else totally different as well. Events are also a great way to recruit volunteers to your community. Once people put themselves forward to volunteer at an event, they identify with the volunteer model, and event volunteers can be converted into regular online supporters of the community. Recruiting volunteers becomes important when you want to progress your community through the establishment phase of the community life cycle, which we'll discuss towards the end of the webinar. Next, we're going to look at essential elements of events. So things to be aware of if you want to make your event successful so that it does result in those great benefits we've just discussed. Enable sociability. So events should allow individuals to interact with each other, not just be spectators. And as Alison mentioned at the start of this webinar, feel free to ask questions, and the aim is for it to be interactive. And I think that is a lot more beneficial than everyone just sitting listening, and that's an example of enabling sociability. Create event-related social events. Major events should also feature related social events such as after parties or networking drinks in which individuals can also interact. These are more common for larger events, and smaller events wouldn't really use these. Facilitating informal social opportunities. So people should be able to interact in a relaxed manner, making it easier for them to open up and get to know each other. Produce ancillary events. So these are secondary events in addition to the main attraction. So many music festivals are now topped and tailed with smaller pre-festival gigs and parties. And these can often be promoted as a bit more exclusive. So you might need to have a VIP ticket to get entrance. Or if you were holding an event for your community, you might hold a smaller event that was for the top members of your community and basically reward them for contributing to the community so well. Theming. Events should have a set theme or common purpose. This structures the event more clearly and gives people a reason to participate. And that point about giving people a reason to participate is something that we'll emphasize throughout this webinar. And finally, a sense of celebration. So all events should be about celebrating the community or celebrating the community members and bringing those people together. Not all of these elements will be applicable to online events. For example, if you're holding an online event, it's not usually feasible to also have event-related social events or ancillary events. But together you should use these as guidelines which both online and offline events should adhere to. Next, we're going to talk briefly about the very scary dark side of events. So not really, but a couple of things to be aware of if you are planning events for your online community. If they're not organized correctly, events can have a negative impact upon your community, the same way as if you're going to a conference and the event doesn't really meet your expectations, you come away a bit demotivated and a bit with the attitude that that's an event you're not going to go to again, and you don't want that to happen with events that you're running for your online community. The event should be something that meets the needs of members, either from an informative or entertainment perspective, and there should be a clear benefit to members of participating. So that's all about engaging your community members, find out what type of event they would like to see held in the community. Ensure it's not an us versus them result by getting the community members to help shape the event, and the event must have a clear connection to the community or the community's wider ecosystem. And next, we're going to look at the different types of events that you can hold. Events can be characterized by venue, so either online or offline, their frequency, their size, and their purpose. So on screen just now, you'll see we've broken this down to regular online events, irregular online events, regular offline events, and irregular offline events. And we're going to go through each of these in a bit more detail just now. Regular online events are a staple of successful communities. These are events accessible to all members and provide coordinated activities at specific times. Communities should have these type of events scheduled on a weekly or monthly basis. And you want to use events to make the community a part of your members' everyday lives and get them into the habit of visiting the community and participating. The level of activity brought by frequent online events increases the sense of social presence members feel, which is their awareness of other members. This frequent activity builds a consistency of interactions between members, which leads to trust, a key component in relationship building. But different events will be suited to different audiences, so find out what type of events are actually of interest to your members before organizing them, and also relate events to the type of community that you have. So some events might be a bit more fun or entertaining, whereas other events might be about teaching your members something, if it's a community of practice, for example. So some examples of regular online events are webinars, so something like this, and webinars are really easy to set up using either a platform like GoToWebinar or Citrix. You can have theme discussions, and that point that we mentioned about theming when we talked about the essential elements of events, it's good to have a theme so that members know exactly what the event's going to be about and why it will be of benefit to them. And it also straight away identifies a common connector between attendees of the event. You could do weekly interviews either with a VIP within your community's ecosystem or perhaps a member of the community that has a good level of knowledge about a topic that ties back to the community. You can also run more fun competitions and challenges. And I think competitions and challenges are good because a lot of people are really competitive, and events are a great way to get them involved in the community. You can also have a newcomer orientation. So maybe once a month you'll do an online event for new members of the community, get them to share why they're interested in that topic and perhaps a bit about what they do. And you could also get more established community members to take part in that as well and give them some tips for getting the most out of the community. Regular online events can also take place at more infrequent intervals. So things like promotional days, the incorporation of holidays such as Christmas or Easter, award ceremonies, named days and elections, And I think these latter events are suited to more established communities, so ones where people do already feel a bit more engaged with the community and where things like awards make sense. So you might award the longest member of the community or a member that reaches a certain level of contributions. And you might also run an election to elect members of the community to certain positions within the community as well. So that could be volunteers, for example. Promotional days and holidays, awards and elections, a common theme of those are that they're more celebratory in nature and bring members together for a specific purpose, or you could also use them to promote the community to external audiences. These events should be considered special within the community, hence why they are not held frequently. So more irregular events that have that celebratory nature are things like milestones, so maybe the birthday of the community, or a certain number of posts within the community. Fundraising days, so even if your community, no matter what your community is based around, fundraising days are a great way of bringing your community members together to achieve something good. And Mumsnet, who we'll look at with regards to a best practice example of events, use fundraising days and campaigns really well to bond their members and to basically set a goal that together those members can try and reach, and fundraising days are a great example of that. You can also celebrate member achievements. That might be a new job, getting married, or a new baby. And you can also celebrate broader victories or celebrations. So maybe a book coming out around the community's interest. If you did have a campaign, maybe the impact, if you did have a campaign that you were running within the community, maybe the impact of that. If we're launching a new product, you can promote that as an event to community members. And a Hall of Fame introduction, element 14 that we'll also discuss, do a Hall of Fame for their community members. And you might also invite guest speakers or VIPs to complete an online chat with members of the community. Next, we're going to look at offline events. Offline events play a major role in the development of online communities. They increase the level of activity within a community. They provide content, and they also increase the sense of community amongst members. They can also be a great recruiting ground for volunteers. Some community managers shy away from offline events for their online community, but this is a mistake, as offline events can be really powerful. Even things like eye contact in an event, shaking someone's hand, makes a difference to how you behave towards that person, and it really works brilliantly at solidifying those online relationships. Offline events as well, I think now everyone is so used to only chatting to people online that you kind of forget that you're actually speaking to a human being, and offline events are a great way of making those connections real. There's so many sites now as well that focus on helping people host events like Meetups and Eventbrite or even Hobbit. And I think it's because face-to-face interaction is now a more powerful thing than ever, as it is something that for so many years now has perhaps been forgotten about, as everyone's been so preoccupied with getting online and building relationships online. Types of regular offline events that you can hold are weekly or monthly weekly or monthly meetups, with members of the community. Decentralized gatherings, so something like when communities with a large following ask members to organize their own events, so organize their events away from the community directly. For example, Mashable, pick a day and then invite members to create events for other community members to attend near their own city. And this works really well at increasing the sense of community they feel for Mashable as the umbrella host, and also builds the relationships between the members that attend these meetups. You might have annual gatherings, so something like maybe a yearly celebration or a conference. And you might have Christmas or New Year parties. Like with online events, offline events may be either regular or irregular. Irregular events include things like exhibitions, trade shows, product launches, and a lot of these events as well have really good opportunities for creating revenue from events that you hold. So for a conference, you might invite really good sponsors to that event. You can also have more casual things like entertainment shows or on conferences have become really popular in the last few years. I think that's because they tie into that element of making events a little more casual so people feel a lot more relaxed and they get a lot more out of the event and they're more able to connect with other attendees of the event. And you might hold other more spontaneous meetups as well. In practice, most offline community events are held regularly on an annual, biannual, or quarterly basis. With the exception of communities based around a common area, it's rare for a community to host weekly offline events. Now we're going to look at some really good communities that have done great things with the events that they hold. So Mashable that I just mentioned, I quickly just want to look here at how Mashable described this event. Is that when we were talking about giving members a reason to participate in the event and building momentum around that event, I think Mashable do this really well. So in the right-hand corner here, under the About Mashable Meetups Everywhere, it tells you who the events are organised by, what the objective is, and where you can find out further information. The goals of the event are clearly listed, and who the other attendees will be, so those with a passion for digital and social media. And the event goes so far as to put as one of the goals to celebrate the Mashable brand, which Mashable, they have such an engaged and such a loyal following that is part of the event. People do want to celebrate Mashable. And the next community we're going to look at is N10, which is the nonprofit technology community. N10 hold events regularly that focus on the key technological impacts on how nonprofits operate, include a good range of debate and topical issues. So this ties in with the community's interest in helping not-for-profits get to grips with technology. N10 hold webinars regularly, not only webinars hosted by them, but they also invite other organizations to present as well. So perhaps an organization that has a new technology product that can help not-for-profits, or basically something they can promote that's going to be of interest to their members. N10 also charge for access to these online webinars, but their members benefit from discounts. And on this image here, just to look at the difference that you can see for the price to attend for members and non-members. But I like how N10 organise their events, as it's really clear to see when it's happening, and it's also really easy to keep up to date with the events as well. So there's no point organising an event if your members never know when it's going to happen and you can't set their expectation of when those events are going to be. Under the events panel on the left-hand side, they've also got recordings of the events that they do hold. So if you do hold any type of online event, such as a webinar or discussion, record it and make it available for those who were unable to attend the live broadcast, so they don't miss out and they still feel part of that event. I like as well that N10 asks for suggestions about the type of events that they hold. So they say, don't see a program that interests you, then they want to know about it. And that ties in as well with making sure that the events that you do hold are of interest to your members. N10 also hold a regular offline event in the form of their nonprofit technology conference, which I've been to this event and it's an absolutely brilliant example of an online community coming to life offline. The 2012 conference attracted nearly 2,000 attendees. And here I think it's really good to look at the ability to share the event outside of the community. So you can share it on Facebook or Twitter, or you can email it to your friend. You can also promote it on LinkedIn, which is obviously going to be of relevance to members of the nonprofit community who want to promote it to their colleagues. Again, they ask for suggestions on the event, so they're including their community members in shaping that event. Under the details for the 2014 Washington conference, they've asked for suggestions on speakers, and they're also asking for volunteers for the event as well. They also take into consideration that it might be a member of the community's first time at the event and provide an option for them to learn more about the event. Like with Mashable, it's very clear what the purpose of the event is. So for N10, it's not only informative and an opportunity to connect with their peers and other exhibitors within that ecosystem, but it's also an opportunity for fun. And N10 hold a lot of side events alongside the main conference as well, which is a great way to meet up with a smaller selection of the community members and get to know them a bit better. The event also has a very clear aims of connect, learn, and change. So it's about taking action, which ties in with what N10 is all about. When planning your events, also look at times and dates which suit your community members and ensure they don't clash with other events within the same sector. Next, we're going to look at element 14, which is a community for engineers. So no matter what type of community you have, there are events that you can hold, and they don't necessarily have to be big, difficult events to organize. There's very simple events that you can organize for your community. Element 14, what I really love about their events is the fact that they don't only promote their own webinars, but they also incorporate other industry events as well. So Element 14 have made themselves the go-to engineering community. They also connect their events to things like their community awards for members of the Element 14 community. So here, for example, you can see that they have a Member of the Year and also a Legend Award, so very much tying in with status and giving back to their community members. And they make it a bit fun as well with things like nominate the most mind-blowing project of the year. So their events match the tone of the community, which when you're planning content for your community as well is very important. This is an example of the events calendar on Element 14, and I just wanted to highlight this as when you are organizing an event, I think the subject line that you choose for the event is really important. You want your members straight away to see what the event is about, to be excited by the event, and to go, that's the event for me, I'm signing up for that right now. And I think spending some time on the Element 14 community, if you are having any difficulty coming up with exciting names for your event, is really good. As Element 14 is a community of practice and also ties in as well as the community of interest, a lot of the events that they have are based on their members learning from the event. And they also do things as well like top 10 lists or top tips that you're going to get from the event. And a big thing as well is about how the way they position their events is that by participating in this event, it will prevent you from making mistakes within your role, which is going to be a really motivational thing for a lot of people, and people want to attend events that are going to help them not make mistakes or do something better or generally learn a lot more. So Mumsnet that we've mentioned briefly throughout the webinar as well. So Mumsnet is a massively popular parenting community based in the UK. And what I like about Mumsnet is that they hold regular events for their community members, things like VIP chats. It might be with a parenting expert, a chef, or even here they're holding an event with the Cooperative Bank's head of home and family. So again, it's all about events that tie in with things that are of interest to their community members who are all parents. They link their events to other discussions within the community, and I think that's a really important thing to do. As a community manager, you've got so many tasks that you need to do, from creating discussions to writing content to now organizing events, integrating the community with the wider organization, that if you can leverage these and connect them, it's going to make your job easier, but it's also going to make it easier for members of the community to participate as well. So get the most out of everything that you do as a community manager. And with events, that's through connecting it back to discussions and creating content around that event as well. So it gives you an easy way to create content. Mumsnet as well, alongside submitting questions live, they also allow members of the community to submit questions in advance, which is good if your members may not be able to make the live session. And you also want your members to be able to keep talking about the topic once the event has taken place, hence why it's so good to connect it with discussions in your forum. Mumsnet also do a really good job of incorporating external celebrations into their community. So they make Mumsnet part of the other celebrations that members of their community might be having. So things like Christmas, they do a lot of stuff on, and here they're celebrating World Book Day. They also connect this once again to other content, so you can get costume ideas. They've got a competition running, and they connect it to their forum in a discussion around children's books. As I mentioned earlier, if you are holding events, it's vital that you promote them. So this is the student room, and the student room have a really nice landing page which overall gives a great snapshot of what's happening in the student room community at any time. So here you can see that their live chat with Miranda is promoted really well. It's clear when it's happening, and they also provide a place for members of the community to ask a question there and then. Next, we're going to look at the Learning Pool community. Learning Pool, as Alison said at the start of the webinar, is an online learning community that I worked with for several years. And part of my role, particularly in the last couple of years that I worked there, was around organising events for our community members. We held regular online and offline events for our members. And the community was very much in the establishment phase, so our members did have a good sense of community, and the events were about increasing that and getting our members to participate and interact in the events as well. So we did regular weekly and monthly community webinars. We also did quarterly face-to-face steering groups for our members, regional get-togethers as the company grew and as our customers grew, it was possible to then group together events for our customers based on their location. And we also broke events down by members' particular interests. The learning hour was something that we did on a weekly basis as well, as we wanted to, the name learning hour was chosen, I'm sure, for obvious reasons, that we wanted our members to learn from that hour and to get more skills that meant that they would be able to use Learning Pool's products and services a lot better. We also held a yearly Learning Pool conference where members were given the time to network with each other, as we wanted them to build up those relationships with each other as well as with Learning Pool. We invited several expert speakers to the event as well, and members were able to take the time at the event to pick the brains of the Learning Pool staff there present about Learning Pool's products and services. So we spent a lot of time thinking about what would make the event attractive to our attendees, and particularly as we dealt a lot with the public sector, there's not a large budget for event attendance, so we really had to come up with events that were beneficial to members, that they would get approval for attending, and because it was all tied back to them improving their skills, it worked really well. But they also had fun at the events as well. We also used to ask older active members of the community to present on their own achievements, and the Learning Pool conference always closes with the Learning Pool Community Awards. Non-members of the community were also invited to attend the event, but for a higher fee than members would have to pay, which we thought worked well as it gave them a glimpse into what was a very close-knit community and the benefits it could bring to their organisation. Events can also be a great way to integrate the community with the wider business. For example, you might ask staff to present an online event, particularly if you have something like a support community. As a community manager, you may not necessarily have the technical skills or the support knowledge to help all members of the community at all times. So appealing to the knowledge that another member of the team might have and get them on board to present an event works really well. You could also ask maybe the CEO or the head of the organization to answer questions about product or service. Increased interactions between community members and the organization itself in this way is really good at increasing the opinion members have of the organization. They see that the community is of importance to the business or to the organization, and it helps create the oneness, which Douglas Aitken talks about in the book The Culting of the Brand, which if you've not read, I thoroughly recommend. It's a brilliant book with loads of great insights. Next, we're going to look at content and discussions. So I've mentioned this already, so I'll go through it quite quickly. Before, during, and after an event, you should create content around that event. Before the event, you want to build up anticipation. So things like an initial announcement about the event. You can drip information about what to expect from the event. You can do a pre-registration announcement. And then once the actual registration opens up, you can let members know about that as well. And it can work really well to announce when a certain number of people register for the event, or if places are filling up and there's a minimal amount of places left, then you can promote that as well. The type of content that you might create around this, just things like a simple news blog post, or if you do a weekly summary of latest news in the community, you can promote the event there as well. Or as we've seen in the student room, you can have a banner on the homepage of the site, or as with element 14, have an actual events calendar that members know they can go to at any time and see what events are coming up within the community. You could also interview key members of the community about the event, do an event preview, so what members can expect, who's going to be speaking at the event, where it's going to be held. If you are organising an offline event, it's really important as well to provide attendees with information about how to get there. I know it sounds like a very obvious thing, but you would be surprised at how much people do get confused when they are attending an offline event, so provide as much information as possible for them. And you can also announce any unofficial meetups that might be happening around the main event. During the event, it's about capturing that shared experience and getting content that will then tie into that shared history of the event. So things like a live updated blog, or you might create a hashtag like the hashtag that's been created for this webinar, so that community members can follow the events whilst they're there. They can see who else is present at the event, and those that are unable to attend the live event can follow it from home or from their office if they aren't able to make it. You can also interview attendees, so you can interview members of the community, or you can also interview speakers from the day. And now I think photographs are becoming so popular, and with things like Instagram, you should capture photographs from the event. And if you post a photograph of someone and let them know that it's there, they're really likely to go in and check, just for that main reason of making sure the photograph looks okay. And it also puts a face to the name for other community members that perhaps weren't able to attend. You could also do short videos, even through your iPhone or a flip camera with attendees. If the event lasts over one day, you could do daily summaries, highlighting the best bits. And you could also get member opinion pieces, so ask members how they're finding the day. And I think these kind of testimonials are a really great way of getting content during the event to promote the next year's event. After the event, you want to bring a sense of closure to the event that's taken place. So again, you could do a kind of overview of what happened. You could thank people in the same way as when you're creating content, you should always mention community members by name. If a particular community member helped out at the event, thank them, or if you met a community member or if something funny happened, mention that as well. And you could do a top 10 list of the best parts of the event. And like we've seen on N10, ask your community members for suggestions for future events. It's a great way to get ideas for the next edition of the event. And you should also initiate discussions based upon the event. I think this is something that should be promoted. I think start the discussion beforehand, and then highlight it during the actual event, that once the event's over, members can keep talking about the theme or the topic that the event was held around. So online communities develop along a relatively fixed path. They start small and steadily grow larger. They have different needs at different stages of the community life cycle. The community life cycle is a great way to see how a community develops, and it also acts as a map, so you know where you are now and you know where you need to go next. At different stages of the community life cycle, you focus on different tasks. Events will become a focus of your strategy when your community is at the establishment stage of the life cycle. So this is when your community has reached critical mass and over 50% of the discussion or activity is stimulated by the community members rather than the community manager. On screen now, I'm just showing a bit of a breakdown on the 4 stages of the community development and how you can see where events tie into this strategy. So the establishment phase, alongside writing content about the community, organising regular events and activities is clearly stated here. And the impact of those events as well is that it does increase that sense of community your members feel. So you're covering a lot of different areas by organising events. The objective of the establishment phase of the life cycle is to increase growth and activity to help members develop a sense of community, which effective events can help you accomplish. If you hold events, I think it's really important to measure their impact on the community itself. So how many people registered, how many people actually attended. If it was an offline event, how many people turned up on the day. And you should also look at if this event had a clear impact on the levels of activity within the community. So did more people visit the community that day? Did they participate more? See if you can make clear links between an event that's been held and the wider impact on the community. And ensure you link events to other parts of your community management strategy. So in the establishment phase, you're also writing content about the community and also incorporate events into that. That's it for this webinar. I'm just going to do a short summary and then I'll hand back to Alison for questions. So events play an essential role in the growth and development of online communities. They bring members together in a collective space, creating a shared sense of history and increasing the sense of community members feel. Events provide members with a further opportunity to participate in the community alongside content and discussions. And they can also make your community a fun place to be, and they also provide really good opportunities for revenue streams. Create events which are of interest to your members and only hold events which are realistic for you to host. And finally, measure the success of events that you do hold. It's really important in all parts of your strategy to measure the impact of the work that you do. So don't just respond to things that are happening in the community. You need to have a clear strategy in place as well if you do want your community to develop. And if you go to this link here, you can download half of Richard's book, Buzzing Communities, for free. And once you do that, we'll send you a community management template, which incorporates all the areas of your strategy and provides you a good layout to plot not only events, but the other facets of your strategy as well, and help you plan out your time, because you do have so much to do as a community manager that events might seem like something you don't have the time to do, but through this strategy template, you'll see where that's possible and how your focus on events changes as your community develops through the community life cycle. And I think that's everything from me, Alison. Do you have any questions?
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Breda. I've got tons of ideas of how we can improve events here at Ning and get more people involved as well. We do have a few questions. I'd definitely be interested to hear from more of you in the audience if you have anything, any questions regarding events, maybe And if you've had any successes you'd like to share, if you are just starting to use events in your community, what types of events are your favorite to host? Or if you're curious about getting started with a new type of events, if you have any questions about that, please submit those questions using the questions feature in GoToWebinar. So one question I have here is, for those communities who, are a bit shy or about starting an offline event or not sure how to go about it, what is a good approach to starting an offline event? Especially, I think a challenge for some online communities is how geographically spread out its members are. So maybe if you could talk about, getting started with an offline event.
Mm-hmm. So I think I mentioned throughout the webinar that whenever your community is in the early stages, events are going to be a little more difficult to organize. So you want to wait until your members are already engaged. So they're already chatting to each other, they're already visiting the community regularly before you do introduce events. But things like if you want to incorporate an event for the first time, something like a newcomer orientation, a simple live discussion, or maybe a chat via Skype that doesn't require any audio and people can just chat, but they're still taking part in that event and getting to know each other. I think those are kind of felt like safe ways to introduce events for the first time. But the main thing is to actually ask your community members what they want, what type of events would they actually go to, and what type of events would they find less intimidating. And we mentioned on conferences, um, as an example of an offline event. And I think these events have become so popular as they're not about asking members to stand up in front of a whole room of people and share their innermost thoughts or deepest, darkest secrets. They're about a casual get together. They're about meeting up in a nice room or maybe just a pub or a cafe and having a casual conversation with people that have a similar interest to yourselves. And I think that is a good way of overcoming that fear. And for geographically dispersed events, unless you have community members that have specifically asked for an event in their area and you have enough people to support that, I wouldn't really worry about geographically dispersed events until your community is growing and where it is possible to spot where members are located. So things like the Mashable meetups, because Mashable have such a global reach, it's now possible for them to see where members are located and where members might be interested in having an event in their area. But I think it's something that really happens organically as your community grows.
Can you provide us with a few tips on how to approach people and get speakers involved in events in your community?
Yeah, well, I think a major part is knowing who to reach out to within that community. So you need to know your community's interest and you need to know its wider ecosystem. So you need to do that research, find out who the influential people are within your community's wider ecosystem, find out who your members are fond of, who your members look up to, like who would get them excited if they heard there was an event with a VIP or a certain speaker. In terms of reaching out to these people, I think it's the same approach that you use when you're reaching out to members of the community or reaching out to your founding members. So these people, they're busy people, so not all will have the time or have the desire to participate in an event. But if you appeal to their ego and their knowledge, get them on board and highlight to them what's the benefit of them for them in presenting an event for you. So things like, will it promote their name online? Will they get a chance to sell maybe their new book or a new product that they have? So just think about it that way. Do your research of who you need to reach out to. Appeal to their ego and status, and always think about what's in it for them. What are they going to get out of doing an event for you, particularly if you're not paying them for that event? I think it's really important to think about other motivators that'll get them happy to take part. And things as well, like you can also share the recording of the event with the presenter so that they can use it for other promotional opportunities.
Sounds good. And I'd add to that, just be open to new ideas. Let your presenter have input in what they're going to present, and following up with them regularly, especially regarding that the statistics feature as well. Some folks want to know what their impact has been, what your audience is like.
Yeah, and even things as well, like you can highlight to them who other presenters have been. And also, I think a really important thing as well is don't be afraid to ask people to take part in events. Don't just kind of have the attitude that, oh, they'll never take part in an event for us. You'll never know unless you ask. And as long as you're nice with your outreach, you do your research on that person and you think about what's in it for them, and I suppose give them enough information about the event and what to expect, then you might get a yes. So don't be scared. There's people out there that will be happy to do events for you, and you just need to reach out to those people and not be afraid to.
That's a great point. Since hosting these webinars, I've switched up my strategy, and the more I reach out even to folks who I don't think I'll get an answer from, either on Twitter or LinkedIn, I don't have a previous relationship with them, I'm constantly surprised at their reaction. And even if they don't agree to do it, they're often, very humble and appreciative for the ask anyway.
Yeah, and even if they can't do an event for you in the immediate future, you can always put them on a list to follow up with again and maybe get them at some point down the line.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you so much, Breda. It looks like the questions are slowing down, and I know you've got another commitment in just a few minutes here. So I want to thank you again for your time. It's been a very informative session. I will follow up via email with all of you with a recording to the session, an attachment for the calendar that was mentioned, and I'll also include the link to that Richard's previous webinar on content and the Douglas Aikens book, just in case you're interested in checking those out as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Alison, and thank you everyone who attended.
Cheers. Have a great day, all.